Hey everyone, welcome back to another Fusion 360 tutorial. Again, as a quick disclaimer, I'm not super well versed with Fusion 360. I'm pretty amateur at it, but I know enough to get around. So what you see in this video, you may find better ways to do it, and there probably are better ways, but I'll show you where I'm at right now, and I'm going to show you today how to design a simple wall hook on which you can store a coat or just a towel or hang anything on a wall. So let's jump right into it. The first step, of course, is booting up Fusion 360 to a blank design. I'll then go over to the Create Sketch under the Solids tab and create a sketch on what I'm calling the bottom plate, the X and Y axis. From here, we need to put in the measurements of what size hook we want to use. Usually you can take this measurement using digital calipers or base it off of a similar design that you may already have. I'm going to be drawing a 2-point rectangle. This one is going to be 75 by 25 millimeters, which I think is a decent size for a wall hook. What I'll do then, though, is before finishing this little bit of a sketch, I want to imagine in my head what this three-dimensional object would look like if I was staring at it straight from the front. And what I'll do is I'm going to add another 2-point rectangle down at the bottom, which will be slightly smaller at 15 millimeters by 25 millimeters. Then I'll finish the sketch for now. It'll move us back to this third-person perspective, at which point I will choose to extrude, and I'm going to be extruding both the rectangles. Both of these will be extruded up by about 5 millimeters. I'll click OK. Now our sketch is of course hidden again. Let's unhide that sketch. And now using Shift and the middle mouse wheel, we're going to reorient the camera so that we can actually select this sketch. I'm going to choose that bottom one there and extrude. I'll then be extruding this one straight up by about 25 millimeters, but the default operation is set to cut, and we don't want to cut this, we want to join it. So change the operation to join. I'll then click OK. At this point, we need to actually make the hook part of this hook. We've got our basic design here, but it's not quite ready for prime time. Let's go ahead and create another sketch. And in this case, I'm going to select the face of the hook right here. You can actually draw sketches directly on the face to make things line up correctly. I'll then use another 2-point rectangle, and this one's going to be a lot smaller. It's only going to be a 10 by 25 millimeter. I'll go ahead and finish the sketch. Now I'll select that new face I've just created and extrude it. We're going to extrude it outward by about 15 millimeters. This should be enough to hook on to whatever we want to hang. I'll click OK, and our hook isn't quite done yet. I want it to look a little bit smoother, a little bit better. So I'm going to be using, under Modify, the chamfer tool. This will allow the faces to be kind of angled and smoother. You could also use this fillet tool. However, I don't really want to use that, as 3D printers can be a little weird on the rounded edges. I prefer more of a sharp edge. It just has a better finish in my opinion. I'll click on the edge that I want to chamfer here, and we'll go ahead and pull it down a little bit. I'm going to chamfer it down by about 10 millimeters. This should retain its structural strength, but also have a little bit cleaner of a design. Click OK. I'm then going to chamfer again and select 2 edges this time for the hook part. And I'm going to chamfer those inwards by about 4 millimeters. Now we've got a little bit of a hook, a little bit of a lip to kind of hook our towel or coat over on top of. Then I'm going to use the chamfer tool again, and I want to make this bottom part just angled up a little bit at a 45-degree angle. I think that looks pretty good for a hook. However, we need a way to actually attach this to the wall. In this case, I'm going to be using screws. So we need to cut a hole in here for something to fit through. At the top of our drawing here, I'm going to use the hole tool. And I'm going to select right here where I want the hole to be. I want to use the default options here, where it's going to be a simple hole, simple, and flat drill point. Then I want to select what size hole it's going to be. This one, I want to have a diameter of about 8 millimeters. Just arbitrary number, honestly. And I want to make sure it's kind of centered. To do this, you can use the top-down view and then line it up using the circle in the center. This isn't going to be perfect, but it's going to be close enough for what I want it to be. But before I click OK and finish this cut, I actually don't want to cut all the way through it. I want to leave about 2 millimeters of space for the screw head to get trapped on. So I'm going to actually extrude it down by 3 millimeters. This will leave 2 millimeters of plastic that I'm going to leave for the screw to actually bite onto. We'll click OK. Now we've got our hole, but let's create another hole. Let's go ahead and click on the center of this one, and you'll notice now that there is a little dot in the center where you can actually snap the new hole onto to keep it centered. And in this case, I'm going to be using M3 screws. Probably not on the wall, honestly, but just as an arbitrary design tool. So to do this, you can actually select tapped under the hole tap type. At this point, you can select what type of screw you want to use. You can switch between sizes. I'm going to switch to the 3 millimeter for an M3 screw. And you'll notice actually on the inside of this that it is now adding threading. So you could actually use a screw on this. Whether or not your 3D printer can get this kind of detail is up to you, but it is kind of a nice little touch for making screw together parts. I'll go ahead and click OK, and you'll notice that this hole will go completely through the model. This will allow our screw to be screwed down into the wall and the head of the screw to retain the actual hook itself. The hook has been chamfered so that it can fit a coat or a towel, and the edge is looking pretty nice. Now this hook is looking pretty good, and I'm ready to export it over to my slicer. So I'll go ahead and save this as a wall hook demo. I'll then go up to File again and export it as an STL file. Once that's done, I can copy it over into the slicer and get it over to the 3D printer. Alright, so once we've got our wall hook imported into our slicer, in this instance I'm using Prusa slicer, the wall hook can't really be printed this direction. I mean, you could always add supports to kind of get it supported, but to be honest, it's way easier to just reorient everything. I'm going to go ahead and click the Place on Face tool and select either side of it. It will now print in this position where it has no overhangs. The only thing it really has to worry about is that hole, which shouldn't really be a problem. We're going to be running a screw through it anyway, so as long as it's close enough, we'll be in business. Let's go ahead and slice this right here. And this one should only take about an hour to print out. I'm going to go ahead and export the G-code and send it over to the printer.